Hello guys, you're on the Stolen Audio Diaries. Subscribe and like.
Started out like any other rushed morning. Lily was running late again. I'd gotten up early to help like I always did, not because she asked, but because I still believed in the little things. The quiet, unspoken teamwork of married life. She was darting around the house like a storm. Makeup half done, one earring in, hair still damp. She had her phone wedged between her shoulder and cheek, speaking way too fast into it while juggling a curling iron and a lukewarm mug of coffee that was already leaving brown rings on the marble counter. "Keys?" she called out, voice sharp, impatient. Like I was the one slowing her down. I reached for her bag without thinking. It was muscle memory at this point. She always left it on the stool by the kitchen island. I'd rifled through it 100 times before, usually just grabbing a stick of gum, her phone charger, or the company credit card she always managed to misplace. I wasn't snooping. I didn't have a reason to, or at least I thought I didn't. This time I reached in and felt something new. Something stiff and thick wedged between her planner and a leather wallet I'd bought her last Christmas. It didn't belong. I pulled it out, a white envelope, crisp and formal looking, the kind that didn't scream casual. Across the front, in bold red letters, "Private." Beneath that, stamped with a blue seal, "Fairfax Medical Group." My heart paused, just for a second. At first, I figured maybe it was just insurance stuff. Some routine health thing. Lily had seen a dermatologist recently. Maybe it was follow-up paperwork. But even as that thought passed, something inside me pulled in tight. Like my body knew something my mind wasn't ready to admit yet. I looked over at her. She was across the room, still talking into the phone, completely unaware. "Tell Jenna I'm running 10 behind. Traffic's ridiculous," she said, blowing a lock of hair out of her face. Her laptop bag was half-zipped. Her heels clicked sharply on the floor as she searched for a matching jacket. She didn't look at me. I shouldn't have opened it. That's what I keep telling myself now. But if you've ever stood on the edge of a cliff, you know what it feels like. That dizzy, weightless second before gravity grabs you. You either step back or you lean in. I leaned in. Inside were test results, blood work, a cover letter, lab findings with long, sterile words I had to read twice just to make sense of. But there was no mistaking the bolded text at the bottom. Patient tested positive for herpes simplex virus type 2. Diagnosis confirmed. No cure available. Management plan recommended. Refer to specialist. The date at the top of the page? 3 days ago. And just like that, the air left the room. I stared at the paper like it might change if I blinked enough. The words didn't budge. My ears were ringing. I felt a rush of heat crawl up my neck, but my hands were ice. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Lily's voice was still buzzing in the background, muffled by the pressure building inside my head. She was switching calls now, asking Siri to text someone. Her world kept spinning. Mine had just slammed into a brick wall. 3 days ago, she hadn't said a word. My brain kicked into overdrive, trying to rationalize, trying to fill in blanks with anything that made sense. Maybe it was a false positive. Maybe it was something from her past. Maybe, God, maybe she was going to tell me, but didn't know how. But none of those excuses came with a clean conscience. None of them made this okay. I looked back down at the folder. My hands were still holding it, stiff and awkward like I didn't know what to do with them. I wasn't supposed to see this. She never meant for me to find it. I heard her footsteps coming closer, heels clacking across the hardwood. I quickly shoved the papers back inside the envelope and dropped it into the bag like it had burned me. I was breathing too fast, chest tight, like I just run a mile. She stepped into the doorway. "Did you find them?" she asked, glancing up, breathless. I held out her keys with a smile I didn't feel. "Yeah, right here." "Thank you," she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. But I turned slightly, pretending to be distracted by the sound of her phone buzzing again. And just like that, she was gone. Out the door in a flurry of leather and perfume. The door slammed shut, and the house was silent again. Except for me, standing in the kitchen with the taste of metal in my mouth and the weight of something I wasn't supposed to know hanging on my shoulders. Something was broken. I just didn't know how deep the cracks went yet. I didn't go to work that day. I just sat there, in the silence of the kitchen, staring at nothing. The envelope was gone, back in her bag where it had been hidden, but the weight of it stayed lodged in my chest like a stone I couldn't swallow. It was like something had split open inside me, and all I could do was sit there and let it bleed. I kept trying to tell myself there had to be an explanation, something innocent or at least understandable. But as the hours crawled by, my mind started pulling on threads I hadn't thought about in weeks, maybe even months. All those little moments that seemed strange but not alarming at the time, they came flooding back in vivid, painful clarity. Like how she had suddenly started working late. Not every night, but enough that it became a pattern. Deadlines, she said. Last-minute changes from the client. And I believed her. I always believed her. Then there was the showering. At first, I didn't think anything of it. But Lily never used to shower at night. She was a morning person, always had been. Said it helped her wake up, gave her a clear head before meetings. Then, about a month ago, she started showering every single night. Sometimes twice. Even on nights when we didn't do anything. When she claimed she was too tired or had a headache or just wasn't in the mood. I remembered one night in particular, maybe 2 weeks ago. We had just finished dinner. She said she had to finish some reports and took her laptop into the bedroom. An hour later, I went to grab a blanket from the closet and saw her sitting on the edge of the bed. Not working. Just staring at her phone with this blank expression. Like she wasn't even really there. I asked if everything was okay, and she jumped, startled, like she'd been caught doing something wrong. She smiled quickly, too quickly, and said, "Yeah, just zoning out. Tired, that's all." She went straight to the shower after that. I remembered how she started avoiding touch. Not dramatically, subtly. Pulling her hand back a second too fast when I reached for it on the couch. Standing a little farther away in the kitchen when we cooked together. Little things you only notice when you're looking for them. And now that I was looking, I couldn't unsee them. Then there was the phone. She used to leave it lying around all the time. On the nightstand, on the kitchen counter. It didn't matter. But lately, that thing might as well have been glued to her. She carried it into the bathroom. Slept with it under her pillow. If I so much as glanced in its direction, she'd subtly turn the screen over or press the side button to make it go dark. And she'd changed her passwords. When I asked why, jokingly, casually, she said it was because work required her to update them every few months. Security policy, she shrugged. I laughed it off at the time. Now, I wasn't laughing. I could feel myself spiraling, the paranoia digging in like claws under my skin. But it wasn't just paranoia anymore. It wasn't just gut instinct or fear. I had proof now. That envelope hadn't lied. It was clinical, factual, damning. You don't get something like that from stress or bad luck. You get it from someone. And that meant Lily had been with someone else. Recently. Behind my back. Secretly. And *mately. The realization hit me again like a punch to the chest. Even though I'd already felt it once. I dropped my head into my hands and let out a shaky breath, trying to ground myself. But nothing felt real anymore. Not the hardwood under my feet. Not the ticking of the wall clock. Not the framed wedding photo on the shelf behind me. That photo suddenly caught my eye. It was from 5 years ago. Lily in her white dress, laughing, head thrown back in that carefree way I used to love so much. My arm around her. Both of us looking like we had no idea what life would throw at us. We didn't. I remember what she said that day while we danced at the reception. You'll always know if something's wrong, right? You'll feel it. Because we're that connected. And the worst part? She was right. I had felt it. I just didn't want to believe it. I don't know what made me come home early that day. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was everything piling up. The envelope, the distance between us. The lies I was finally starting to hear in her voice. I had a meeting scheduled for late afternoon, but around 2 p.m., I canceled it. Told my team I wasn't feeling well. Truth was, I felt too much, like I was standing on the edge of something, and whatever was waiting below wasn't going to be survivable. I didn't drive straight home. I parked 2 blocks away. I didn't even know why I did that at first, but later it made sense. I wasn't just going home, I was checking. I was hunting for the thing I was afraid to admit existed. Some part of me didn't want her to hear the car pull into the driveway. I wanted to see whatever was happening. Unfiltered. No masks. No time to hide. The street was quiet. Bright day. Clear sky. Birds chirping like nothing in the world was wrong. I walked with that kind of numb energy you get right before something bad happens. Slow, deliberate, trying to brace for an impact you can't see but know is coming. As I stepped up to the porch, I could already tell something was off. The door wasn't locked. We always kept it locked. Even during the day. Especially since the neighbors down the street had that break-in last summer. But this time it wasn't just unlocked. It was slightly open. Not wide, just barely cracked. Like someone left in a hurry. Or thought they were alone. I pushed it open silently. Heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The moment I stepped inside, I heard her voice. Lily. In the kitchen. Angry. Are you serious? She snapped, her voice sharp, not the polished tone she used on calls. You infected me, you idiot. I stopped. Everything inside me just froze. My body, my thoughts, even my breath. A man's voice answered. Muffled. Deeper. I couldn't make out what he said, only that he was there. In our home. In my house. The same kitchen where we had danced barefoot after too much wine. Where we talked about baby names and weekend trips. He was in there now, ruining whatever was left. Don't tell me it's my fault, she hissed. You said you were clean. You said. Her voice cracked a little. You said you'd take care of it. My fingers tightened into fists, and I had to force myself not to move. Not to slam the door open. Not to burst in and end it all right there. But something held me back. Something cold and steady whispered. No. Not yet. You need to know everything. The man mumbled again. I caught the tail end of it. Something about not knowing, about being tested now. You're unbelievable. Lily *T back. You think I can fix this? You think I can just explain this away? Explain this away. The word stabbed straight through me. Not just because of what she'd done, but because of how she said it. Like the betrayal wasn't even the worst part. Like the real disaster was that she'd gotten caught in a mess she couldn't control. I backed out slowly, gently pulling the front door shut behind me. My pulse was loud in my ears, like static. My legs felt hollow, like they might give out beneath me. Everything was confirmed. It wasn't just a suspicion or a theory or a feeling in my gut anymore. It was real. It was happening. She was having an affair, with someone careless enough to give her a permanent reminder. Someone dangerous enough to let her walk back into our bed carrying it. I walked back to my car in a daze, trying to hold it together. My hands were shaking as I gripped the wheel, but I didn't start the engine. Not yet. I just sat there. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even speak. I just stared at the dashboard, listening to the tick of the cooling engine. I had reached the threshold, the place where trust dies. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. I didn't confront her that day. I didn't storm back into the house. Didn't shout or throw things or demand names. I didn't even want to see her face because I knew if I did, I'd break. Either into 1,000 shattered pieces or into something much, much darker. So I drove. Around the block. Around the city. For hours. And then I went home. By the time I walked through the door again, she was alone. The kitchen was spotless. No trace of him. Not a sound. She was upstairs getting ready for bed like it was any other Thursday evening. She didn't even ask where I'd been. And I said nothing. We brushed our teeth in the same bathroom. Slept in the same bed. I lay there next to her, staring at the ceiling while she curled up like a child on the other side of the mattress. We used to fall asleep tangled together. Now we barely touched. In the morning I got up first. I brewed the coffee, poured her a cup, set it next to her phone. She shuffled into the kitchen wearing the old hoodie I gave her on our second anniversary. The one she used to say was her favorite. Now it just looked like a costume, like she was playing the part of a wife. She smiled faintly. Thanks, babe. Babe. I nodded. Sipped my coffee. Didn't speak. She was texting again. Thumbs moving fast, then flipping her phone face down the second I glanced in her direction. I just sat there and watched her pretend. She asked if I'd seen her charger. I handed it to her from the drawer. She said she had plans that evening, dinner with the girls. Casual, nothing big. I smiled. Sounds fun. Because that's who I was now. The quiet, accommodating husband. The background character in her story. A man she could walk past without seeing. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving. Her lips felt cold. Or maybe I just couldn't feel them anymore. As soon as the door closed, I let out the breath I'd been holding since sunrise. There was no more yelling to be done. No more begging, no more hoping. The fight was over before it began. She had made her choice. And I had made mine. I just hadn't told her yet. That evening, after she left for her so-called dinner with the girls, I sat in the driveway for a long time. I hadn't even started the engine yet. Just sat there with the garage light spilling over the hood and the weight of everything finally settling in. I couldn't keep living like this. Not knowing. Not doubting. Not piecing together a story with gaps and shadows while she walked around acting like nothing had happened. So I did what I always do when something breaks. I started taking notes. I pulled my laptop onto the passenger seat and opened a fresh document. I titled it simply, Lily Timeline. I began typing line by line. 3 nights ago, found test results in bag, Fairfax Medical Group, HSV-2. Last 2 months, consistent pattern of late nights, sudden increase in work deadlines. New passwords, new routines. Phone always face down, never leaves her side. Night showers start 6 weeks ago. Never did that before. I went further back, scouring my memory for anything else. Suspicious texts. Moods. Days she came home unusually quiet or unusually cheerful. One day stood out, when she brought me a new pair of sneakers I hadn't asked for. Just because, she said, that had felt off. Too random. Like a guilt gift. I wrote it down. Then I opened her social media accounts. She wasn't one to overshare, but I still checked every post, every tag, every comment. I made note of who she'd been messaging recently. The same 3 or 4 names popped up. 2 I knew, 1 I didn't recognize. Mike R. I added him to the list. After that, I opened a private tab and searched Private Investigator Fairfax, Virginia. I wasn't even sure if I was really going to go through with it. Felt excessive, like something bitter men did in bad movies. But this wasn't a movie. This was my life. By the 3rd website I found a guy. Ex-cop. Discreet. Good reviews. I filled out the form, dropped in my number, and hit send before I could talk myself out of it. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, because I wasn't. Not in the loud, fiery way I expected to be. I was calm. Empty, but focused. It was like flipping a switch. I didn't love her any less. That's the messed up part. But I didn't trust her anymore. And you can't love someone through that. You can only survive it. The next morning, she acted like everything was fine. She wore a navy dress I hadn't seen before, spritzed on perfume that smelled too sharp. She said she had to stop by the office and might be late. I said, no problem, because I had already stopped waiting up. I checked my phone around noon. The investigator had replied, got your message. I can meet tomorrow. Bring what you have. So I did. Every note, every timestamp, a printed copy of the test result. Everything I'd gathered, lined up like exhibits in a trial that hadn't happened yet. I handed it all over, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like I was doing something. I wasn't just reacting. I wasn't just hurting. I was moving. Lily thought she was operating in the dark. She had no idea the lights had just come on. 5 days later, I got the call. I was at work trying to act normal, sitting through meetings, answering emails, pretending I was still the man I used to be, before I found an envelope that cracked the floorboards of my life. I kept my phone face down on the desk all morning, heart jumping every time it buzzed. When it finally rang with a number I didn't recognize, I grabbed it and stepped outside. Is this him? The voice asked, straight to the point, no introduction needed. Yeah, I said. It's me. I've got something for you. Want the short version or everything? I swallowed. Start with everything. There was a pause. Then a sigh, like he was about to read off a list no one wanted to hear. She's been meeting with the same man. Middle-aged. Brown hair, beard, drives a silver Audi. License plate runs to a condo registered in his name, west end of the city. They've met 5 times over the past week. Hotel. His place. Coffee shops during the day. The world didn't spin. It just stopped. You're sure it's the same guy? I'm sure, he said. Got photos. Timestamps. Want them. I want everything. Later that night, I sat in my car outside a gas station parking lot, staring at a manila envelope on the passenger seat. Inside were printed stills, maps, logs, and one flash drive labeled simply Lily. Felt like something from a movie, except it wasn't fiction. It was real. Raw. Too real. I didn't open it right away. I sat with it beside me like it was a bomb, because that's what it was. Another explosion I had invited into my life. One I asked for. Eventually, I drove home. She wasn't there yet. She had texted earlier. Late night, big pitch tomorrow. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. I almost laughed when I read it. Almost. When I got inside, I locked the door behind me and sat at the dining table. I took a deep breath and opened the envelope. The first photo was dated 2 days ago. Her walking into a hotel lobby I knew well. We'd stayed there once, during a staycation a few years back. She'd called it our little escape. She was with him, smiling. The next photo, same day, different angle. His hand on the small of her back. Another, them leaving together. Her hair pulled up, face glowing in a way I hadn't seen in months. Then one outside a medical building. Fairfax Medical Group. Both of them walking out together. My hands clenched the edge of the photo. My jaw tightened. So that's where she got the test. With him. Not alone. Not scared or confused or ashamed. With him. Like it was just another errand on their list of secrets. The final photo was the hardest. Them at a quiet park bench. Laughing. Her head on his shoulder. My heart didn't shatter. Not this time. It just hardened. I packed everything back up. Placed the envelope inside my desk drawer, beneath a stack of tax documents. By the time Lily got home, I had already reheated dinner for her. Chicken and rice. She said she was starving. She kissed my cheek, thanked me, told me she owed me one. I smiled, because I already knew what she owed me, and I was done waiting for her to admit it. I filed for divorce the next morning. No fight, no confrontation, just a lawyer's signature and a quiet envelope sent straight to her office. She came home pale, trembling with the papers in her hand. "This is a mistake," she whispered, like I had lost my mind. I didn't argue. I just looked at her like she was someone I'd already said goodbye to. She didn't cry that night. She just sat on the couch, staring at nothing, probably realizing for the first time that I wasn't bluffing. At the first hearing, she denied it all. Said we were struggling, that I'd misunderstood. But then my lawyer laid it out, photos, audio, the test results. When the flash drive played her own voice, "You infected me, you idiot." She stopped talking. Her hands shook. For the first time since this started, she looked at me. Really looked. Not with anger. Not with guilt. With fear. Because the mask was gone. And I was no longer the man she could fool. The letters started after that. Scribbled notes left in the mailbox. Pages of confusion, half blame, half pleas. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was scared. I still love you. But love doesn't lie. Love doesn't cheat and come home to kiss you goodnight." At the second hearing, she tried to hug me in the hallway. I didn't move. She broke down in front of strangers. But I didn't feel cruel. I just felt done. She had destroyed the bridge, and there was no way back across it. The judge ruled in my favor. The house, the assets. She left with a box of clothes and a silence I didn't fill. I watched from the window as her taxi disappeared down the street. She didn't look back, and I didn't need her to, because I had already buried that version of us. And as I sat alone in the quiet, breathing in the stillness she left behind, I
Bye bye,
realized,
guys.
for
Thank
the
you for
first
watching.
time in months, I could finally exhale.